The sky turned red just before the first scream. Lyra was outside when it started, standing on the edge of the colony farm, watching the clouds. She had never seen clouds like these. They weren't soft and white, they were dark, sharp, and pulsing. With light, something was coming. Behind her, the windmills stopped, spinning. The birds vanished. A strange hum filled the air, deep and heavy like a warning too late. Then the first explosion hit. It came from the east side of the colony bright, and sudden, like the sun had fallen. The ground shook. Windows shattered. People screamed. Lyra dropped her food basket and ran. Her family lived near the town square. She could already hear people yelling as she rushed through the narrow alley between the bakery and the old tech station. A man ran past her with a child in his arms. Blood was dripping from his leg. Dust covered everything now. Above the buildings, black ships filled the sky, big and silent. They didn't look like Earth ships. These were ECs RN, Alien Deadly 1. Of the ships hovered above the communication tower and fired a thin blue beam. It didn't explode. It erased. The tower turned to ash in one blink. Gone. Lyra turned a corner and saw her mother. She was pulling her younger brother Nico from a crushed vehicle. Her father was behind them, holding an old rifle. "Lyra," her mother yelled. She ran to them, heart pounding. Her father grabbed her by the arm. "We go now. No time." "Where?" Lyra asked, breathless. "There's a safe path under the SEA. Storage silo. Emergency tunnels," he said. "Move." They ran. Behind them, the colony center burned. As they reached the old silo, Nico stumbled. He was only 9. Lyra picked him up. They opened the hidden door behind a stack of metal crates. It was dark inside, cold, dusty. "We'll wait here until the patrols pass," her father said, but he never got the chance. The door above burst open. 3 Zarn soldiers dropped in, tall, armored, faceless. One of them raised a plasma spear and pointed it at her father. Her father didn't wait. He fired. 1 alien dropped. The other 2 attacked at once. "Run!" Her father shouted. Lyra screamed as her mother pulled her and Nico through the next door, but she looked back and saw her father stabbed through the chest. The sound followed her down the tunnel, metal against metal screams, and the blast of energy weapons. Emergency lights flickered. The tunnel twisted like a maze. They didn't stop running, but the Zarn didn't stop chasing. At the last gate, her mother turned and held up a shock mind. "Take your brother," she whispered. "Keep going." "No, no," Lyra cried. "I love you." Her mother hit the trigger. The tunnel exploded behind Lyra. Dust and heat slammed into her back. Her ears rang. She couldn't hear Nico crying, but she felt his shaking hand in hers. They ran. They reached the end of the tunnel too. Hours later, emerging near the old water pumps by the edge of the forest, Lyra was shaking. Her body hurt. Her mind screamed. They had lost everything. Her parents were gone. The colony was in flames, and in the sky above. The alien ships still floated like monsters. Nico cried himself to sleep in her arms. She didn't sleep. She watched. The fire from the hills, hiding behind broken trees. She saw the Zarn soldiers dragging humans out of their homes. Some were taken, some were shot. The flames never stopped rising. That night, something inside her changed. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was angry. The next morning, they were found. A low-flying Zarn scout ship spotted them while scanning the hills. Lyra grabbed Nico and ran, but a net launcher caught them both mid-step. They were dragged into the ship's dark belly. No words, no mercy. Inside the prison transport, she saw others, maybe 20 humans, mostly young. Some were injured. Some stared blankly. No one spoke. Lyra held Nico tightly. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. She stayed still. She waited. She watched hours pass, and days they were moved again. From the ship to a camp. From the camp to a mine. Each place worse than the last. Nico got sick. The aliens didn't care. And when she begged for medicine, a Zarn officer struck her with the end of his rifle. She fell. Blood ran down her cheek. That night she didn't cry. She listened to the machines. watched the guards, memorized every step, every routine. Then one morning, she woke up, and Nico was gone. She ran to the guard, shouting, "Where is he? Where's my brother?" Zarn didn't answer. She kept shouting. Finally, one soldier looked down at her and said, "Subject 72 transferred to testing. You'll see him never then." He smiled. That was the last time Lyra ever begged. She returned to her bunk, sat in silence, and then she whispered one promise to herself. "They took everything from me. I will take everything from them." End of part 1. The prison moon was made of rock and cold silence. Lyra had been there for 62 days. She knew because she scratched a mark into the wall each night after lights out. Her fingers were raw, her back ached, but her heart, that had gone quiet along. Time ago, Nico was gone. Her parents were gone. Her world was gone. All she had left were the memories, and they hurt more than the bruises. Every morning, she was taken to the mines with a group of other human prisoners. Their job was to dig for zollite, a glowing purple mineral the Zarn used to power their warships. If you slowed down, you were beaten. If you spoke, you were shocked. If you ran, you died. Today, something was different. The guards were whispering in their language. The air was tenser than usual. Lyra felt it in her chest, like a storm was close, but still invisible, as she bent over to lift a crate of zollite. She heard a voice low and weak from a dark corner of the mine. "Don't drink the blue water." Lyra looked over her shoulder. An older man sat chained to the wall, barely breathing. "What did you say?" she whispered. He pointed at a small metal tank near the eating station. "They tested on us," he muttered. "Makes you forget, makes you obey." Lyra glanced at the tank. That's the same water the guards had forced them to drink every night for the last few weeks. It tasted sharp, cold, wrong. Now it made sense. The newer prisoners, strong ones. Angry ones, they all became quiet after a few nights. Eyes blank. Movements slow. No memories. The Zarn weren't just mining zollite. They were erasing humans from the inside. That night, Lyra faked her sip. She held the water in her mouth until the guard looked away, then spat it into the dirt. The next morning, something strange happened. Her head felt clearer. The colors around her looked sharper. She remembered her brother's voice perfectly for the first time in days. She smiled. A small, dangerous smile. Later that week, a new group of guards came into the camp. These ones wore black armor and strange red visors. They weren't soldiers. They were scientists, and they were there for her. Lyra was dragged into a white room with smooth metal walls and bright lights. A chair waited in the center, bolted to the floor. Straps hung from the arms and legs. She didn't scream when they tied her down. She didn't flinch when they injected her arm with silver liquid. She stared at the lights and listened. One of the scientists spoke in a soft, cold voice. "Human subject shows unusual brain resistance. Begin sync pulse." A loud, high-pitched sound filled the room. Her ears rang. Her teeth shook. Her body twitched against the straps. The world blurred, then turned black. When she opened her eyes, everything had changed. The room was dark. Alarms were flashing, and the chair beneath her was melted. She looked down. Her arms were glowing, not brightly, but with a soft silver shimmer, like veins of light moving under her skin. The straps were gone, torn apart. The guards outside the room lay on the floor, moving. Weapons bent, doors shattered. She didn't remember what happened, but she knew one thing. She did this. She stumbled out of the room, heart racing. Her head buzzed with strange sounds. She heard machines, electricity, breathing, footsteps through walls. The silver liquid, whatever it was, had done something to her body. But it hadn't controlled her like they wanted. It had awakened something else. She made it to the outer cell block before the first siren screamed. Red lights flashed. The AI voice rang out in 3 languages. Escape detected. Lockdown initiated. Guards rushed in from every side. Lyra didn't run. She raised her hand, only half knowing why. A pipe nearby burst open, sending steam and hot gas into the hallway. One guard screamed and dropped his weapon. Another flew back as metal walls slammed shut by themselves. She didn't touch anything. She only thought it, and the world listened. She ran through corridors, dodging bullets and lights, each step sharper than the last. Every corner she turned, she knew what waited. Every machine she touched, it obeyed. She was no longer a prisoner. She was becoming something else. She reached the edge of the main yard. Cold wind hit her face. The mining site stretched wide under the stars, but ahead of her stood one last Obstacle armored gate. 20 feet tall, covered in scanners and heavy guns. She crouched behind a storage bin, breathing hard. Then something moved behind her. A soft footstep, a shadow. She turned fast. It was another prisoner young man. Maybe 19, pale, thin, scared. "I saw what you did," he whispered. "They were right to fear you." "Help me open that gate," she said, eyes locked on the control panel. He nodded. "I'll draw fire. You run." He stepped into the light. The guards saw him. Shots fired. Lyra leapt. In one smooth motion, she slid across the gravel, reached the panel, and slammed her hand down. Her skin glowed again. The gate shattered like glass under pressure, and she ran. Outside the prison, the moons were bright. She ran for the ridge. Her feet didn't slip. Her lungs didn't tire. Her mind burned with new thoughts. Something inside her was waking up. Something powerful. Something dangerous. And far above. In the command ship orbiting the planet, a Zarn officer reviewed the security footage with trembling hands. He zoomed in on her face, paused the screen, and said just 2 words. "It's her." The cell was white. Too white, no shadows. No dust, no sound. Just Lyra and the hum. She didn't remember being caught. 1 second, she was running through the rocks, and the next, nothing now. She sat in a chair with soft cuffs around her wrists. The chair didn't hurt, not yet, but the room did. It was the kind of silence that makes a person feel like they're already dead. Then the door hissed. Open. 3 Zarn entered. Not soldiers. Scientists. They wore robes that shimmered like oil there. Faces hidden behind thin masks of blue glass. One of them held a tablet. "Subject 7 to A," he said coldly. "Human female. Mental resistance. High. Physical damage tolerance. Extreme. Brainwave activity. Unstable." Lyra didn't respond. The lights above flickered. The hum grew louder. It was no longer just in the room, it was in her head. The Zarn continued. "We will begin neural dissection in 60 seconds. If she breaks, she may survive." He turned to his assistants. "Begin the cut." From the ceiling, a mechanical arm dropped down. At its tip, a needle glowing with blue fire. It moved slowly. Lyra's heart raced. She struggled against the cuffs, but they held tight. The hum became a roar. She heard voices inside her head. Surrender. Obey. Let go. "No," she whispered. But the needle came closer. Then something snapped. Not outside her, but inside. A sharp crack in her mind. Like glass breaking underwater, the cuff on her right wrist split open. Then the left. The air around her shimmered. The lights above exploded. The hum screamed. The Zarn scientists backed away, shouting. The needle stopped midair and reversed, flying backward into the ceiling as if pulled by some invisible force. Lyra stood up, his eyes glowing faint silver. The floor cracked under her bare feet. She didn't blink. One of the Zarn pulled a weapon. He didn't get the chance to use it. Lyra didn't touch him. She just looked at him. And the weapon bent in half like paper. He screamed. The walls around them began to shake. Panels burst. Sparks flew. Screens flashed red warnings. Lyra walked forward slowly, the lead scientist. Raised a containment shield, but Lyra raised her hand. The shield shattered. Like glass, Subject 72A is unstable. The Zarn shouted into her wrist, "Come, we need kill clearance!" Now, but no answer came, because the Cums were dead. Lyra reached the center console and touched it. She felt the data. The system opened like a book in her brain guards, doors, ships, files, and then she saw it. Test file, NIKO73B. She stopped breathing. She tapped the file. A hologram appeared. Nico, alive. He was strapped to a chair just like hers. Eyes wide, arms twitching. They were testing him too, trying to bend him, trying to break him. She saw the file name below. Scheduled for termination. 6 o'clock ship time. That was in 2 hours. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked out of the room as everything behind her burned. Outside the lab, alarms wailed across the entire facility. Lyra moved like a ghost through the smoke. The guards fired at her. The bullets stopped in midair and fell. Doors opened before she touched them. Cameras exploded when they saw her. One guard tried to run. She flicked her hand. His body froze, not dead, but paralyzed. She looked into his terrified eyes and whispered, "Where is my brother?" "Level 6, he gasped. "Testing." "Block 4. She dropped him and ran. Level 6 was a maze. Bright lights. Long corridors, screams. Some human, some not. She saw things she would never forget. Children locked in metal boxes. Wires, inside skin. Girl who spoke in numbers. A boy with a missing face. They were making weapons out of humans, and she was supposed to be the first. She reached Block 4. The doors were locked tight behind them. She heard a familiar voice. "Nico," he was screaming. "No, no, don't. I want to go home." The Zarn scientist laughed. "Humans always break." Lyra touched the door. The metal screamed. It peeled open like paper inside. 3 scientists turned in shock. One reached for a panic button. She raised her arm. The panel fried. They tried to run. They didn't get far. She ran too. Nico and pulled the cables from his arms. His body was cold, shaking, but alive. His eyes fluttered open, "Sis." He whispered. She smiled softly, tears in her eyes. "I got you." She wrapped him in a thermal blanket and carried him down the hall. The facility burned around them, but they kept walking. No one stopped her. No one could far above the moon. Aboard a Zarn command ship, a general reviewed the footage. He paused. On the image of Lyra's face, covered in blood and firelight, eyes glowing like a star. "Shut it down," he ordered. "Sir," his officer asked. "I said shut it all down. Evacuate. Erase everything, even the other subjects." The general looked at the screen again and whispered, "She wasn't supposed to survive, but she did." The world outside the testing facility was dead and cold. Ash fell from the sky like snow. The trees were black skeletons. The ground cracked under Lyra's feet with each step. But none of it scared her anymore. She was no longer just a girl. She had become something else. She had escaped with her brother Nico. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. They found shelter in the remains of an old mining transport buried in the rocks. It was quiet there. Hidden, Nico still shook in his sleep. His body was weak, and his mind was full of fear. But Lyra was changing. At night she felt energy moving inside her skin like silver fire running through her veins. Her senses were sharper than ever. She could hear power lines buzzing from miles away. She could smell plasma leaks underground. She could see in the dark, and machines. They listened to her now, not with words, but with something deeper. The next day, she sat by the broken comms console inside the shelter. The screen was dead. The wires were old. She stared at it for 5 seconds, then reached out. Her fingers brushed the control board. It powered on. No fuel, no battery. Just her. The screen blinked with static, then showed a faded star map. Nico sat up, watching with wide eyes. "Did you fix it?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, I woke it." She used the console to scan nearby signals. She picked up bits of old messages, human languages, old Earth codes, and one faint signal that caught her breath. It was from another human ship, alive, somewhere out there. But before she could trace it fully, a red light flashed. Motion sensors. They weren't alone anymore, she told Nico to hide beneath the metal floor. He didn't argue. Outside, the ash swirled. The wind howled. Then came the sound of engines, slow, heavy, insect-like. A scout drone .xarn-made. It hovered 5 feet above the ground, scanning the wreckage with blue beams. It clicked and buzzed like a hungry wasp. Then it turned toward the shelter. Lyra stood at the door, hands at her sides. It saw her. It charged its weapon. She didn't move. The weapon fired. A pulse of blue light surged forward, fast and deadly, but it never touched her. The pulse froze in midair, then reversed direction and hit the drone. It exploded in a flash of smoke and fire. Lyra didn't blink. Her eyes glowed for a moment, then dimmed. From below the floor, Nico whispered, "What are you?" She didn't answer, because she didn't know yet. Later that night, while Nico slept, she stepped outside again. The stars were out. She closed her eyes and listened. She could feel machines underground, old satellites in the sky, even the slow hum of a broken Zarn shuttle in the distance. It was like the universe had wires now, and she was part of them. She raised her hand and focused. Far away, a light flickered. She smiled. The next morning she decided to move. The Zarn knew she had escaped. They would send more, bigger things. She needed to be far away before that happened, and she needed to find that human signal again. But Nico was too weak to walk far, so she built something from broken parts of the shelter. From old drone pieces, from shattered tech, a hover sled, powered by nothing but her touch. Nico stared at it in awe. "How did you do this?" "I don't know," she said, "but I didn't do it alone." "What do you mean?" She tapped her chest lightly. "They're in me now. The tech, the machines. They didn't take me over. They joined me. They traveled across the wastelands for 3 days, through old battlefields, filled with metal bones, through dead cities where only ghosts lived. And all the while, Lyra grew stronger. On the 4th night, as they camped near a dry crater, Nico asked a question she hadn't thought about in days. "Do you still want revenge?" Lyra stared at the fire. "Yes," she said, "but not just for us. It's for everyone they took, everyone they broke, everyone they made disappear." She looked up at the stars. "They wanted to turn me into a weapon." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Now, I am one." Back at the Zarn war base, orbiting the prison moon, panic had started to spread. Multiple scout teams had gone missing. Drones weren't reporting back. One deep scan operator pointed at the monitor. "She's hijacking local machines, sir. Not just destroying them, controlling them." The commander growled, "No human has that power." Another officer replied, "She's not just human anymore." In the desert, Lyra found what she had been sensing for days, an old Earth ship buried halfway in the sand, burnt, broken, but not dead. She climbed inside. The walls groaned, lights blinked. "Hello?" she whispered. A voice answered. Pilot detected. It was the ship's AI, barely functioning, but still alive. She laid her hand on the control panel. The ship lit up. All systems, all lights, engines. Roared, Nico cheered, Lyra smiled. The ship spoke again, command accepted. Waiting orders. Weapon. The stars trembled as the warship arrived. It was massive, 20 times bigger than the colony stations. Built like a floating fortress, the Zarn crucible glowed with crimson lights. Its underbelly lined with cannons, gravity, torpedoes, and plasma. Lances. It didn't glide through space it hunted. Inside the ship, Zarn officers gathered around a glowing display. On it, a picture of Lyra, her silver eyes burning with light, and a list of dead squads beside her name. The High Commander paced behind them, fists clenched. "One human girl," he growled, "has made fools of our entire Western fleet. We'll find her. You will burn her." No one dared speak. Orders were sent. The Crucible adjusted course. Its target, the ruined moon where Lyra had last been seen, far below. Lyra stood atop a canyon ledge. Wind blew her hair back. Her eyes were fixed. On the stars, she felt the ship arriving before she even saw it. Nico stood beside her, shivering. That thing. It's coming for us, isn't it? Lyra nodded slowly. They sent their best. What do we do? She turned to the ship behind them, her old Earth cruiser, now fully active and under her control. The engines were humming quietly, the inside. Glowing faint blue. We don't run, she said. We answer. The crucible entered low orbit. Cannons locked on. A fleet of scout pods launched like angry insects, searching the ground inside the Earth cruiser. Lyra sat in the pilot seat. She didn't touch the controls. She didn't have to. The ship responded to her. Thought's metal panels shifted. Thrusters warmed. Energy shields bloomed like flowers. I've never flown a ship, she whispered, but her hands glowed, and the ship obeyed. The first wave of Zarn. Drones came screaming over the ridge. Lyra lifted one hand. A pulse of blue light rippled out from the ship. Drones. Exploded mid-silent fireworks. Target defenses. Active, shouted a Zarn tech aboard the Crucible. Unknown frequency, scrambling our systems, switch to manual override, barked the commander. Too late. Lyra's ship launched skyward like a bolt of lightning. The battle began. In the upper atmosphere, clouds burned as the Earth cruiser danced between Zarn fighters. Lyra's eyes never closed. She saw every move before it happened. A fighter tried to flank her. Her ship rotated. Mid-drift and fired backward, clean hit. Another came from below. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered, "Fall." A hacked Zarn satellite suddenly dropped from orbit, slamming into the enemy ship like a hammer from the sky. Inside the Crucible, chaos erupted. She's hijacking our orbital systems. She's predicting our movements. The High Commander slammed his fist on the rail. She's one girl. Shoot her down. But Lyra wasn't fighting alone. In the Earth cruiser, she had awakened something ancient AI built during Earth's darkest war. Silent for decades, now reborn through her. I've seen your enemy, the AI said in her mind. I will help you burn them, Lyra smiled. Then let's teach them fear. She sent a virus into the Crucible's systems through signals, through satellites, through machines. The Zarn thought were dead. The warship flickered. Its lights dimmed, its weapons turned. On itself, one by one, turrets exploded. Power cores failed. Fighters veered out of control. Lyra dove toward the surface, pulling enemy fire with her. The Crucible tried to follow. Its underside glowed, building up for a planet-buster strike. But it never fired. Because just before it reached firing range, it split in two from below. Nico watched as fire rained from the sky. The Crucible broke apart in silence, like a god cut down in its sleep. Debris screamed across the moon's sky. Shards of red metal lit the horizon, and in the middle of the destruction, Lyra's cruiser flew steady and touched. When she returned to the canyon, Nico ran to her. You did it, he said. She shook her head. No, we did. She reached into her coat and pulled out a data core. I took everything they had, their maps, their targets, their secrets. She looked up at the burning remains of the Zarn flagship. This was just the first. Back in Zarn-controlled space in the deepest part of the Empire, emergency messages rang out. Crucible destroyed. Subject 72, responsible. Threat level updated, planetary class. And somewhere in the shadows, a new voice whispered in fear, she's not a girl anymore. She's the war. The bunker smelled like metal and pain. Lyra moved slowly through the dark corridor, her boots silent on the cold steel floor. She kept one hand on the wall, feeling the faint pulse of power lines buried beneath. The air was heavy, not with dust but with secrets. Behind her, Nico whispered, Are you sure they're here? Lyra didn't answer with words. Her glowing silver eyes stared straight ahead. Yes, she said softly. They're waiting. It had been 2 weeks since she destroyed the Zarn warship Crucible. 2 weeks since the enemy realized she wasn't just a fugitive, she was their worst nightmare. She had hacked into their core systems, stolen star maps, found something terrible. A list. A long one. Project. Human Edge. Dozens of human children, abducted, numbered, modified, just like her. This bunker was one of the hidden research sites marked. On that list, it was buried under the crust of an abandoned moon in Sector G12. No cities, no lights, no witnesses. Until now. Lyra stopped at a reinforced door. It looked ordinary. No signs, no guards. But behind it, she felt vibrations. Soft, repeating, heartbeat patterns. Not human. She reached forward. The door peeled open without sound. Inside was a long room with glass walls. Behind each one, a child. Some were awake, some were strapped to chairs. Some just stared into space. Wires ran into their skin. Data streams flickered above their heads. Tess's Lyra whispered. Just like mine, just like Nico's. Nico looked away. How do we get them out? Lyra stepped forward. We wake them. She walked to the first chamber. A boy, maybe 10, lay motionless. His eyes twitched. Like he was dreaming, the machines above him beeped. Lyra placed her hand on the glass for a moment. Nothing happened. Then his eyes opened. He stared at her and whispered, "You're the fire." Within minutes, the power across the bunker shut down. Doors hissed open. Alarms blinked but didn't ring. One by one, children awoke. Some sat up, confused. Some began crying. One girl stood tall and calm. Her veins glowing faint green. "You broke the silence," she said. "We've been waiting." Lyra gathered them all in the center hall 27. Children all changed. Not fully human anymore, but not Zarn. Either some could speak to machines. Some could lift heavy steel without touching it. Some just stared with glowing eyes. Waiting. For a command, Lyra knelt beside them. "I know what they did to you," she said. "They did it to me. They tried to break us. They failed." She held up her hand. A small spark danced between her fingers. "They turned me into a weapon." She looked at them, each one. "But now I'm not alone." Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her. She spun around. A door burst open. 3 Zarn guards entered. Weapons raised, target reacquired. One shouted. Nico ducked. The children froze. But Lyra didn't move. She stared straight at the soldiers, and the lights shattered above them. The machines in the walls screamed. Pipes burst. The floor trembled. The soldiers tried to shoot, but their guns bent in their hands. And then the children stood. One boy raised both arms. The wall behind the soldiers slammed shut like a trap. The guards were gone. Silence returned. Lyra looked around at them all. The youngest was 6. The oldest, maybe 13. They had seen things no child should. But now they were awake. Now they were together. She led them through the bunker's halls, gathering data cores and unlocking doors. She found cloning rooms, biolabs, burned records, and one final chamber. Labeled in both Zarn and human language, Omega Class, Experimental Unit 99. Inside was a small boy, alone, floating in a tank of silver liquid. Wires ran into his neck, spine, chest. His heartbeat was slow, too slow. "Nico," Lyra said, "stay back." She approached the tank. The sensors read his name, Kane. His vitals were spiking, but not from fear. From energy unstable. She placed her hand on the glass. His eyes opened. Instantly, not glowing silver like hers, but white. Bright and blinding. The lights in the room surged. All machines died. The tank cracked, and Kane floated gently down to the ground. He looked at Lyra. "You came late," he said, "but not too late." Then he smiled, and the floor below them began to hum. Outside, Zarn patrol ships descended onto the moon's surface. They came fast, armed, prepared, ready to wipe the facility clean. Inside, Lyra stood with Kane and the others. Behind her, Nico held her hand. A dozen children glowed faintly in the dark, and Lyra said one thing: they wanted weapons. She stepped forward. Let's show them what happens when weapons fight back. The sky above the moon turned red again. Not from sunlight, but from fire. The Xer had arrived. Dropships rained down across the surface, black and sharp, like falling blades. They came fast, hundreds of them, engines howling, guns already armed. Inside them, soldiers waited ready to crush anything that survived. They didn't know what waited below. They didn't know. Lyra was still alive, and they had no idea what she had built. Inside the ruins of the underground bunker, Lyra stood at the center of a glowing circle. Around her were 27 children, silent, watchful, breathing in unison. Each of them had been tortured, tested, enhanced, but now they were something new now. They were awake. She looked across their faces. "I won't lie to you," she said, voice calm. "They're coming to kill us." Some of the younger ones looked afraid. Some stared coldly. "They think we're still scared." "So broken," Lyra continued. She clenched her fists. "We're not. They didn't make us less human. They made us more." She stepped forward. No more running. Suddenly, a hologram lit up behind her. The old Earth cruiser's AI, now fully bonded to Lyra, projected the incoming forces. Enemy deployment: 438 Zarn troops, 15 heavy drones, 7 tactical walkers. ETA: 4 minutes. The silver-eyed boy from the tank stepped beside her. He looked up at the map, then smiled. Not enough. The children moved through the tunnels quickly, silently, like ghosts. Some carried makeshift weapons. Others didn't need any. One girl with no voice controlled electrical fields. A boy with pitch-black eyes could melt steel by touch. Another could bend sound, confuse sensors, break radar. Lyra walked at the front, not as a commander, but as a spark. When the XRN dropships landed, they came in with full formation, perfect lines, guns raised, scanners sweeping, but their readings were wrong. Too quiet, no movement, no heat signatures. Then a soldier stepped onto the soft gray rock, and the ground opened up beneath him. A trap. A child's trap. The first 10 Zarn vanished into a pit filled with energy spikes. Chaos erupted in the distance. Lyra raised her hand. The sand in front of her rippled, then rose. A machine half buried. Long dead came back to life, an old Zarn walker. She had reprogrammed it. It now carried 3 of her children, on its back launching plasma beams at the enemy ranks. Inside one of the ships, Zarn captain shouted over comes, "They're using our own tech. Our systems are folding." Another responded, "It's not tech, it's her." Lyra wasn't just using machines anymore. She was the signal, her body lit with light. Silver lines crawled up her arms like energy veins. Her mind moved faster than any computer. She jumped forward, straight into the battle. Blasts flew at her. She spun one sand. A gravity wave pulsed out. The blasts stopped. The soldiers. The side, Kane raised both arms. A full dropship froze midair. It groaned, twisted, then exploded without sound. Another girl screamed into the wind, and her voice shattered enemy visors. The battlefield was no longer a war zone. It was a storm, within minutes. Over half the Zarn force was gone. The rest began retreating toward their command ships. But Lyra wasn't finished. She found the lead, squad behind a broken ridge. They were calling in reinforcements. The commander turned when he saw her. Dropped the communicator. "You should have killed me when I was in the tank," she said. The air shimmered. The machines behind her. He raised his weapon. She never touched him, but his armor peeled away, one layer at a time. He screamed, then silenced by sunset. The battlefield was quiet. Ash floated again, but this time, it wasn't falling from the sky. It was rising from the wreckage of an empire's mistake back in the bunker. The children were silent. Some were injured. None were dead. They had done the impossible. They had held the line. Lyra walked to the center of them and said just one thing: They thought we'd hide. She looked toward the stars. They forgot what happens when humans stop hiding. Far away, in the Zarn home sector. High Command watched the data. Again, the name appeared. Lyra 72A, and now beside it another code, Kane 99, followed by a final message. They are no longer weapons. They're the beginning of the end. The camera hovered in silence. It was an old Earth's drone scarred, dented, and barely holding together. But it worked. Lyra had fixed it herself. Now, it floated in the bunker's main hall, its red light blinking gently. Across from it stood Lyra. The children were behind her, silent, strong, glowing with the power the Zarn had tried to bury. And in front of them, the entire galaxy watched. This message is for every human still listening. Lyra said, her voice steady, broadcasted across every known channel. For every colony, every soldier, every family, every child who thinks they've been forgotten. She stepped closer. I'm Lyra, designation 72A. They tried to turn me into a weapon. They tried to erase my name, my voice, my memories. She paused, her silver eyes burning. But I remember everything now. Images filled the feed behind her video taken from her hacked archives. Children locked in tanks, human prisoners. Screaming in the mines, scientists laughing while injecting silver liquid into veins, and her walking through fire, facing warships, tearing drones apart with her thoughts. I escaped. I fought, she continued, and I found others like me. She turned, showing the 27 children once test subjects. Now warriors, they called us failed experiments. Broken things. But they were wrong. She raised a small object in her hand, a piece of a Zarn warship, cracked and useless. This was once part of the most powerful war fleet the Zarn ever built. She crushed it with one hand. Dust. This is what their fear looks like. Then, her voice changed lower, sharper. This message is also for the Zarn. She stared directly into the lens. You stole our homes. You stole our families. You stole our names, but now we know yours. We know your codes, your stations, your weakness. The AI behind her displayed star maps, sex, arm, trade routes, weapons depots, military archives, everything she had stolen in the last 2 weeks. You taught us pain. She leaned in. Now we teach you fear. The transmission ended, but the galaxy did not return to silence. On human colony worlds, people gathered in crowds to watch her face. In deep space freighter halls, workers cried. On military ships, commanders stood in shock. Some of them remembered Lyra's name. Some remembered the day the signal stopped. And now, they saw it light up again in Zarn territory. Panic spread like wildfire. Whole stations went dark, afraid to be hacked. Elite units were pulled from borders, and on the capital planet, the Zarn Emperor watched the footage. He said nothing for 5 minutes, then whispered, "She just started a war." Back on the moon, Lyra stood on the cliff's edge again. Nico joined her. He held her hand. "They saw you," he said. "All of them," she nodded. "They needed to." He looked at her. "What now?" Behind them, the children were preparing to leave. The old Earth cruiser had been upgraded, fused with alien tech, rebuilt from the bones of a forgotten age. It was more than a ship now. It was a symbol, a spark. Lyra looked to the stars. "The Zarn wanted silence," she said. "I gave them noise." She stepped onto the ramp of the cruiser. "But we're not done yet," she smiled. "Now we shout." As the ship rose into the sky, stars opened wide above her. She had no flag, no army, no fleet. But she had truth, she had power, and most of all, she had others. And somewhere, on a far-off planet, another girl with glowing eyes watched Lyra's message play on a stolen screen. She turned to her little brother and whispered, "She's not the only one."